We are now.
So what are we doing this time?
Well, I was thinking we should just do the Harvey Glatt story, but I don't have that much time today.
What is this about?
So this is about Jimmy Leroy.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you can take us back to the earliest days of meeting him and tell us a story about what happened in those early days.
Yeah, Louise probably remembers more than I do. Louise, do you know where I first heard him, or
Right.
you know where I first heard Jimmy?
No.
He just seemed to be on the scene. Do you want me to look at you, or you're going to edit this, right?
I am totally going to edit it. So, in fact, I usually shoot on about a 20-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
So for every 20 minutes, I'll use about one.
Okay.
So, we can
Okay,
go off topic,
we're
whatever.
gonna have to try and remember, because he just seemed to surface on the scene. You probably know more than I would about when about what the year was. Would it be around 72 or?
I think it was around 72, yeah. Denim?
It seemed he seemed to be on the scene, and I remember being impressed with him as a potentially good songwriter. He was a good piano player, and could sing. I wouldn't say a great singer, but a good singer. He had, and this is of course the era when Elton John was coming to prominence, and I don't know how much, I guess some of what Jimmy was due to Elton John influence. Pre Billy Joel, I think. I think it was Elton John. When did Elton John surface? Around 72? Yeah. Around that time, we'd have to look at some dates to see. I remember when David Wiffen was recording his first album for Fantasy. That was when Elton John had his first hit single called Your Song. And so Jimmy came a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly there was Elton John influence.
And did you...
The band was starting to work around that time. I'm really vague. What we were doing in those days.
It's all going to be edited. I'll make you sound like you know exactly.
Yeah. There was a person who Ross Reynolds was. What label was Ross Reynolds was?
GRT?
GRT. Yeah. Ross Reynolds had GRT, and somehow or other I got eventually got Jimmy's material to Ross, and Ross was impressed enough to want to record Jimmy. Adam Mitchell, I remember being involved in the process of production, and Jimmy was often more concerned about image and doing interviews, and sometimes wasn't as well prepared for sessions as he should have been, or as other members of the band should have been. I remember being in Toronto working on the recording, and there being on and off problems between Jimmy and sometimes the band members, Jimmy and Adam, but eventually it all did come together.
Yeah, and here was this guy who was playing in coffee houses, and all of a sudden the album comes out and he has a big hit. What was that like for him?
Who was you're going to have to interview him. You haven't done it already, have you, with Patterson?
Well, I phoned up Rick.
Yeah.
And I told him that I talked to you.
Yeah.
And he said he wasn't up to it.
Well, he will be up to it.
Yeah.
If we just show up.
Okay.
And do it. I'm going to sometime this week probably take Alan Wigney out to meet with him.
Okay.
And and I will convince Rick to do. You want to do a video interview with him with Rick as well?
We can do,
Yeah.
5 minutes if that's all he's up to. It can be really short, but if he's the one with the memory of the early days, so I told him what I was doing, and he said talk to Harvey.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get him involved. Maybe starting not with a video, but with you coming out there and just getting comfortable chatting with him, and then arranging a time to do the video. I think it can happen.
Sure.
I promised Alan I'd take him out there this week because Rick was in the band and will remember a lot of things. You've talked to Gary Como too.
We're gonna interview Gary in July, I think.
And who else?
I'm hoping to do a Gibby, the Cass.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of out of town.
You have Gibby's contact information.
And both Mel Shaw and another guy.
Mel Shaw?
I'm not sure, but he wrote an obituary about Jimmy, and Rick said he would be a good contact. And I contacted him. He's in Nashville, and I said, well, I'm not going to Nashville, but he said, I'll videotape myself and send it to you.
Okay. So
he still wanted to do it. And there was another guy.
Now there's Howard Lapidus.
Oh, do you have a pen?
And I was talking to Howard just recently about the time of Jimmy's death, because Howard was paying. Jimmy died at Macy's motel on Carly, and Howard told me a very interesting story. Howard could probably arrange to get you a video too. He's in L.A.
Okay.
And he told me an interesting story about when Jimmy died at Macy's, that Howard was paying for his hotel bill. And after Jimmy died, the hotel contacted Howard, because Howard, I guess, had signed for it. And the proprietor, when Howard went in to pay the bill and told him what happened and how it happened, he didn't want to charge Howard for his bill. And he remembers that. Howard was very close to Jimmy in the last couple of years. Are you aware that Marty Onrot managed him for a while?
I've heard the name.
Yeah.
Oh, he's deceased now, though, isn't he? Marty's deceased, isn't he?
I don't think so.
Was he the one that worked with the Cooper brothers?
No.
Okay, thinking of
there
another
was
one.
another guy named Katz or Katz.
Oh, Alan Katz.
Alan
He
Katz,
is deceased.
who worked with the Cooper brothers.
Marty, what was his name?
Onrot. O-N-R-O-T.
And do you have... Actually,
I may have some contact information. Marty was an active concert promoter in Toronto, and he did manage some people. And he's still around.
Okay.
And he, after things were going downhill with Jimmy, Marty kind of resurrected his career, but then ran into personality problems again.
So why did things go downhill for Jimmy?
One thing that happened that hurt, and we may have discussed this before, that GRT existed in the U.S. and the single, which had happened not in a big way right across Canada, but happened in one market, then it spread to another market, then it spread to another market. So it never, if it would have happened all at once, it could have been, top 5. But because it was happening sporadically across the country, but it did, it didn't achieve #1 hit status. But but the single from the album did have enough momentum to warrant a release in the U.S. And it started to happen in a few northern cities, doing very well in the charts. And then all of a sudden, problems within GRT. I'm not sure whether it was financial bankruptcy, but there were some serious problems within the company, and it negated the momentum that was starting to happen. Ross Reynolds would be a good person to interview. Ross went on to become the head of Universal in Canada. I do have contact information with Ross. He was running CARAS, the Canadian Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences. Not running it, but the chair of it for some time. And he's still involved. He's involved in a pilot project with Paul Hoffman in China to find out new ways to get money for record companies, composers, and publishers through sale of music online. Maybe a pilot project with the university. I have his information.
Okay, great.
And I should be able to find Marty on for you too.
So he had some problems, and the music didn't take off the way it could have, and Denim came to an end.
Yeah.
And was that all personalities?
Yeah. Again, we're going to have to get Rick Patterson, who still has pretty good long-term memory, and Gary. Adam Mitchell is another person that I do have contact information for. Adam went on to, well, before that he was a member of the Talkers that almost happened, and Adam was very close with and did some writing for Linda Ronstadt, and then he co-wrote a lot of songs for Kiss, and he's in Dallas right now. He was in Nashville for some years, and he'll have some memories.
I understand if we're talking about the music, you have some personal connections with the songs of James Leroy.
The anniversary song he wrote for us. Yeah. Louise, what do you remember about Jimmy? Louise remembers certain things at that time.
Well, maybe we should do an interview with you.
No, you don't do an interview.
We were often like surrogate parents for the time.
Yeah. He was a child.
You don't want to be interviewed, though, Louise?
No, thank you.
Okay.
He was a child who didn't grow up. Not responsible. And
Louise, do you want to put this on? Even if you're not videoed, you could, so they can hear you?
No video.
Okay.
But maybe.
Okay.
How about that? You can pick up the.
Well, leave it to Louise to decide what she wants to do, because I know not everyone's comfortable.
Yeah. Are you okay with me?
Yeah.
What we can
You don't
do,
want video, Louise?
I'll put the.
Louise, it's for archival purposes.
Yeah, I know. I'm archived.
Yeah.
And they might use.
I'm going to put the lens cap forward, but I just need to
let them
pick up the audio from what you say, also on the camera. So
That's great. We found that he didn't work. He achieved a certain status, and then Harvey said, "You have to work at this business." I remember you telling him many, many times.
Yeah.
And he was just, in his glory with Denim, and with the fame and the big, but everything was vapid underneath. It was, it was empty because he wasn't following up. You don't work at an art or a craft. It doesn't last very long.